All right, this is to help with answering the test from 2-9. So if you have 2-9, this video is just going over what you need to do there. Okay, so the first two problems deal with adding or subtracting decimals. So right here you've got a negative 33.45 plus 17.27. You'll notice we have a negative plus a positive. They're opposite signs, so we're going to subtract those values. And then the negative here is a bigger number, so our outcome is going to be negative. So I've already set up our numbers and so that the place values fall under each other. So now it's just subtraction. So 5 minus 7, you can't do that. You have to borrow from the 4. This becomes a 3, and then you get 15. 15 minus 7 is going to be 8. 3 minus 2 is going to give us 1. Bring down our decimal. Okay, you've got 3 minus 7. Once again, you cannot do that. You have to borrow from the 3 in front. So this becomes a 2. This becomes 13. And that would give us 6. And then 2 minus 1 would just be 1. And since our negative is the larger number, our outcome is going to be negative. Okay. Adding fractions. So to add or subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So we've got 3/7 and 3/5. You got to think of what is the least common multiple of 7 and 5. And one thing you do is just multiply 7 times 5 to get 35. And since 7 and 5 are prime numbers, that's going to be our least common denominator. Sometimes there's one that's smaller. Just make sure if you don't find the least common denominator, but you find a common denominator, at the end you make sure you simplify. So you've got 3/7 and 3/5. So I'm going to times this by 7. Oops, let me. So I times the 3/5 by 7, because that'll give me 35 on the bottom. I'm going to times 3 and 7 by 5, because that will give me 35. So this now becomes 15/35 plus 21/35. Okay, now that you have a common denominator, you're just adding the numerators together. So 15 plus 21 equals 36, and you keep the denominator. So it'd be 35. Okay, this is an improper fraction, so we will simplify it. How many times can 35 go into 36? So that would be once. 1 times 35 is 35. When you minus, you're left with 1. So this is your whole number. This is your remainder. Or actually, I should say this is going to be your numerator. And this is going to be your denominator. So that's going to equal 1 and 1/35. Yeah, I'm going to move this all. Okay. All right. So it's the same thing with mixed numbers. You still need a common denominator, but before you do that, one thing you can do is convert them into improper fractions. So 3 times 5 plus 1 over 3 minus 7 times 2 plus 2 over 7. So remember, it's your denominator times your whole number plus your numerator. So this becomes 15 plus 1 is 16/3 minus 7 times 2, which is 14 plus 2 is 16/7. Okay, we need to have a common denominator, so 3 and 7 are both prime, so we're going to multiply them by each other. So this one, you multiply by 7. This one over here, you're going to multiply by 3. Okay, what you'll get here So 7 times 10 is 70, plus 7 times 6, which is 42. That's going to give us 112 over 21, minus 3 times 16, that's 30, plus 3 times 6, which is 18, 48. So 48 21st, 112 minus 48, that's going to give us 64 over 21. Okay, once again, it's an improper fraction, so we're going to set it up. 21 can go into 64. Can it go in 3 times? It can go in 3 times. 3 times 21 is going to give us 63. Our remainder is 1. So once again, this is our whole number. This value is our denominator. And this is our numerator. So 64 21st is equal to 3 and 1 21st. Okay, that is what you're doing on the test from 2-9. You're adding or subtracting decimals. You are adding or subtracting fractions. And you're adding or subtracting mixed numbers.